Welcome back to the Wise Divine Women podcast, where we help you go from fed up to faith fueled, helping you to become the wise divine women that you've been called to be. Today, I have Jenn Trepeck on the phone, and she is the host of Salad with a Side of Fries podcast, but she also helps so many women around the world and in the US talk about their health, talk about how to incorporate better living, healthier living, and not being restricted to one certain diet frame of mind. But I have loved creeping over her Instagram page, and she just does such a great job. I know she's a woman who loves the water, she loves her family, and she just loves helping women around the world. Thank you so much, Jenn, for joining the show.
Thank you, Dana. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. So what brought you on this journey of not only just helping women, but why a podcast?
Sure. So, my background is really business and marketing, and I came to all this wellness stuff, like so many of us, through my own saga of figuring out my health and my weight. And I call it a saga because, I don't know, I feel like the word journey doesn't really do it justice.
No, it's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster.
Exactly. And, worlds sort of collided for me. I moved to New York after graduating from business school and undergrad, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't work for someone else for the rest of my life. And that desire to eventually work for myself and my whole health and wellness, weight management thing collided when I learned about the curriculum that I based my entire practice on. And it is really the only thing that allowed me to say I kicked my food issues. And from that, really what it was is I stopped listening to people who were talking about diets. And I started listening to the people who were talking about the human body and how the body works. And from there, I was sort of like, well, everyone deserves this information. And why isn't this what we learned? And then how did all of those things come to be? So I became this insatiable student. And I said to myself, okay, this is the thing I'm going to do outside of my full-time job to eventually work for myself. So I started health and lifestyle coaching as a side hustle back in 2007. And built my practice on the side for 12 years while working. I was a photo shoot producer, and then I worked in hedge funds. And, long story short, 2019, I knew I was going to be leaving my full-time job. And I'd gotten into listening to podcasts. And I was like, I could do this. So I did. And little did I know at the time that it would completely take off and become sort of this entity and engine on its own, but it really is just another piece of how I deliver my mission, because everything I do is about changing the state of healthcare and empowering people to reclaim their own health. And I fully believe that money can't be the reason that someone doesn't experience health. And so the podcast being, a free tool for people who are willing to use it. It's really, in marketing speak, it's sort of, the top of the funnel, the way people tend to find me. And then, as you mentioned before, kind of enter my ecosystem, and we connect in a variety of ways. Yes.
Right. Right. Exactly. And that's it too. Like, your podcast becomes your voice, and it's finding a way to reach people, whether it's through many different mediums, and whoever is, hungry enough to listen or read or be part of the community will always ream the information, always be able to learn something. And you're right. Money is not about diet. And money is not about health. It can be in some situations, but there are always choices. It doesn't cost anything to breathe well. It doesn't cost anything to walk. It doesn't cost anything to choose from the green aisles instead of the center aisles. It's always a choice that we make. And it is a choice that we make when we come to the table to be in a place of unforgiveness and stress and anger and spite. When you think you're going to digest some food, never works, right? That's amazing. So you talk about a lot of things. I think the one thing that forgive me if this is wrong, in your sheet that you had written about how to burn fat without doing keto. Is that
Yep.
that's amazing. Can you speak into, like keto is a very hard thing to do, to be honest. It's a little hard on the body as well for people.
Exactly.
It is a therapeutic application in most medical cases or in most nutritional cases. And people go a little like people are crazy when it comes to diets. They're all or nothing and they're a little go overboard and they have to be so precise and they can't love and nourish themselves from the heart. So what do you mean by that?
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know, you're spot on. And I agree that there's some value in keto, in that concept of burning fat as fuel. And yes, there is a specific therapeutic case for it. And other than that specific case, it can be, like you said, really hard on the body, not where we really want to be living the rest of our lives. And to your point, also, a lot of the women that I work with, and I say we, because I too, we are perfectionists or recovering perfectionists. And so that black, white, on, off, good, bad, all or nothing is exacerbated by a plan like keto that doesn't allow for or travel or a lot of these things. So I often say, if your plan doesn't allow for life, because those things happen in life, then it's not your plan for life.
Right.
And our objective is to have a plan that allows for life to show up. So the idea of burning fat as fuel without keto is really understanding how the body works and whether we are priming the body to store fat or burn fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes down to blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So when our blood sugar is too high and when our blood sugar is too low, we are storing everything we eat as fat.
Right.
So here's sort of I like analogies. So I used to use the I Love Lucy episode where Lucy and Ethel are at the candy factory.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? So I find now when I'm talking to younger people, they don't know this reference. And I've had, I use a grocery store checkout instead, right? So, if we go with the grocery store checkout thing, so you have the conveyor belt and you put your groceries on the conveyor belt and then there's the cashier who rings it up. And back in the day, remember there was somebody who bagged the groceries, right? So when food and fuel come at, when that conveyor belt is moving at this nice even pace, the cashier rings it up and the bagger puts everything in a bag and the cans are on the bottom and the bread and eggs are on top and the frozen things are all together, right? And everything is where it's supposed to be in a bag. When that conveyor belt speeds up, the cashier speeds up to keep up with the conveyor belt, and the bagger tends to just throw everything in a bag and throw it in your cart trying to keep up.
Right.
The body works the same way. So the conveyor belt is our food and fuel coming into our system. The cashier is what our body is doing with all of that food and fuel. So when everything comes at a nice even pace, the body produces insulin to carry all that fuel to our muscles and our cells to be used. When we choose high glycemic foods,
right?
When we sit down at the restaurant and start with the bread basket, sometimes even we eat a larger quantity of certain foods. And it's like flipping the switch on that conveyor belt. It speeds up. Now the body is overproducing insulin to keep up with that. And our body stores all of that extra fuel and the extra insulin as fat because our muscles and our cells can only take in so much fuel at a time. So taking the other example of undereating, because we all grew up on the eat less, move more, right? With me? So we put one thing on that conveyor belt. That cashier rings it up. The bagger might put it in a bag, but doesn't hand you the bag.
Keeps
right?
it.
It's holding on to it because they're waiting for the next thing to come. And our body works the same way when we are under eating. The body doesn't know that the reason we're under eating is because there's a refrigerator full of food that we have chosen not to eat.
Right.
The body identifies a lack of fuel as an emergency, as threat. And so now the body is holding on to anything it gets because the body's job is to survive. And it says, you're not going to kill me. I'm going to take whatever I get and I'm going to hold on to it for dear life. right?
Yep.
Fat is fuel stored to be used later. The challenge with our modern lives is that that later never really shows up.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It always waits for that emergency that never really happens.
Exactly. So we live in this place where most of the things that we have played with, the diets and all of the plans, have us living in these extremes. So our objective is to choose foods and eat regularly enough to keep our blood sugar stable in this middle range, right? We want it to fluctuate. That's our body responding. We just want it to stay sort of in this middle range where we're avoiding the extreme highs and the extreme lows. And what happens when we are consistent with that kind of feels like a miracle. And I always joke it's not magic, it's science. Except it feels like magic because what happens is two things. One is we're not adding to those fat stores. And two, the body says, I am safe. There isn't a threat. I'm going to get fuel when I need it. I can release the fat stores that I have been holding on to. And it does.
And it does, yeah. That's so good. It's such a great analogy, Jen. And it's so true. Like, we just have to be able to get our bodies in a state of trust for ourselves, which sounds silly, but it is a state of trust. And then it's being able to work with those things. And you're right. So many women, especially my age or older, are really stuck in this eat less mentality.
Yes.
And then that binge eating or different things like that. We're all
Yes.
caught in this really crazy cycle, but eating less doesn't work. We know that our body needs a consistency to it, and so that we can provide the fuel that's necessary and then not be in this state of fast or famine, right? Feast or famine. And again, it's this whole stress response that's just, the way that we're made. And we needed to be that way, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a piece of it, you're talking about the trust that our body has to trust us. And I think a piece that I see missing for a lot of women now is that we don't trust our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
We are constantly fighting our bodies because it's not doing what we want it to do, or it's not
Absolutely.
responding the way we're expecting it to. And with all of the plans and rules that we have followed, we have taught ourselves out of paying attention to our bodies and understanding what it's communicating. Instead, we're always fighting what it's communicating. A craving. I know so many women who are so afraid of feeling hunger. And so when we learn this new approach, what happens is that we're then on the same team as our body.
Mm-hmm.
And the body trusts us, and we trust the body to respond in time, to communicate with us. And it's really about us sort of taking a step back and relearning the language of the body, relearning how to communicate with the body and pay attention to it, because we've spent so many years ignoring it and trying to change it and, push down any communication that we're getting from it because we think that's the problem.
Right. Right. It's so true. Like, we have this love-hate relationship with our bodies, and we really have to regain that trust within ourselves. So true. So in that, we are learning now how important it is to have protein first for a lot of our meals so that we can start lighting that fire of digestion and to satiate the appetite and to help regulate blood sugars, insulin, all those different things. So in that, and then we all get confused with fasting. How does that play a role?
So fasting, the way I see most people apply it, it ends up being a tool to simply eat less.
Right. And restrict ourselves more and give ourselves more stress. Yeah.
So I like to back up to say most people, and I am 1,000% confident in saying most people, because statistically, only 12% of the U.S. population is metabolically well. So 88% of us.
Sad.
Right?
It's very sad.
So
yeah.
88% of us over the course of a day are not getting what our bodies need, given 24 hours a day to do it.
Mhm.
So just on a practicality standpoint, how we think we're going to get everything the body needs in fewer and fewer and fewer hours makes me laugh. Because the other interesting thing is that there are very few things that the body holds onto in a usable form. Water-soluble vitamins we're going to pee out. Fat-soluble vitamins, they're stored in fat, right? And they use fat to be absorbed, and then they're stored in fat so that we can hold on to them and use them when we need them. But anything else we eat, in order to store it, our only storage for fuel is so. What tends to happen then when our body needs fuel and we haven't eaten? Think about an animal, those who eat animal protein. What part of the animal do we eat?
The muscle.
The muscle. So when we need fuel and our body hasn't gotten any, it uses our muscle first.
Right.
Muscle is also expensive tissue. It is metabolically active tissue. It is tissue that requires fuel to maintain. So that's why the body is going to use that as the fuel before it uses the fat as the fuel. So
what flips the switch?
Right. So what we need to do is keeping our blood sugar balanced, but going to the fasting piece, what ends up happening the way most people use fasting is that it's a way of calorie restricting, and then we're losing muscle when our body needs that fuel. And it's also sending this threat signal because we're expecting our body to perform without fuel. So, with that said, I like fasting better for men than for women. There are specific kinds of fasting that can be really helpful on a daily basis for women who are in that perimenopause, menopause time. We want to start food within an hour to 90 minutes of waking up, and we want to finish food for 3 to 4 hours before bed. So your fasting window is 3 to 4 hours before bed, overnight to about an hour to 90 minutes after you wake up. That's the fasting that is most effective for women. If you want to take it to an extreme, you'll say that your fasting window is when the sun is down. So our fueling time is sunrise to sunset. Now,
which makes sense, but that changes in the winter. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Those of us who live in places with seasons, that's a whole other can of worms. And unfortunately, our modern lives don't live by sunrise to sunset. So there are certainly practicality pieces at play. But for somebody who's looking for that, extreme of a scenario, that would be, the piece of it. I do think there are some, and that's, by the way, on a daily basis, of intermittent fasting for metabolic and, whole health support.
Right.
With that said, there are some cellular health benefits, some more of the biohacking benefits that can come from occasionally or a couple times a year doing like a 3-day fast kind of a thing. Again, I'm not as much of a fan of it for women as I am for men.
No.
And that's very much a next level, because if we're doing that from a place of any kind of dysregulation,
it'll wreak
our body
havoc.
will not experience exactly. Our body's not going to experience it the same way. So it becomes a bit of a nuanced, conversation. But I appreciate you asking the question about fasting because it comes up so often now.
It does. And women are trying so hard.
Yes.
Right? Trying so hard. And they're trying to capture the benefits of so many different theories that are out there in the world. But if we can just circle back and understand the importance of feeding the body to help regulate insulin so that we don't create a wall of resistance, so that we can achieve not only better health for our hormone health and our metabolic health, but this really plays a big role in I think our emotional health and mental health with that, because
absolutely
it's a fine line between each, and you teeter-tottered between the entire thing with our hormones that are roller coastering and food fights and all these different things. It becomes a big pool of turmoil, to be no other word to say, really. It's very stressful. And that stressful part just keeps the cortisol going and keeps the belly fat rolling. And it's just,
Absolutely. And I want to touch on this piece of all the women grasping at all of the things that we're hearing about.
Yeah.
And all of those, not all, a lot of them fall into the category of that biohack. And hold on, Alexa just started talking. Alexa off. Literally.
She's so nosy.
And I said nothing of her name.
Google does it all the time. That's for sure. All the time.
So, good Lord. This idea of biohacks, they can be so tempting because it feels like the shortcut. It feels like the easy button. So I wrote about this in my book that came out October of 2025. My book is called Uncomplicating Wellness. And the way I talk about it in the book is a biohack is by definition a 10% improvement. Well, if we're at 80, 90% health, going 80 to 88 or 90 to 99 is earth-shattering. We already said, though, that 88% of us are not.
Yeah.
So if we're living at 20, 30% health, that 10% improvement, if we even get the whole 10%, is nominal. We're not moving the needle in a way that we're going to experience it. So what we really need is to biostack, as I call it. So we biostack over biohack. We lay the foundation, and then that gets us to that 70, 80, 90. Then we can add the biohack and see and experience the difference. And the other thing that happens is when we lay this foundation, we get very, very clear on which biohack is the one for us. So if you feel like you're thinking about or looking at a whole bunch of them, that's an indication that we want to get that biostack in place first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is really important for women to slow down and to really take a good inventory of things so that they can start rebuilding a foundation. Right? Because at my age, it's not so much the big fancy things. It's reframing and rebuilding and creating that stability, because now it's a longevity thing. It's not so much looking sexy. We can, but it's more of the longevity, brain health, bone health, all those things that you don't think of when you're 30 because you're just trying to be a hot mama. But now it's a different aspect, but that doesn't change in the sense that we need to reframe, restack. We need to rebuild our foundations, which again goes back to we need to eat food. You need to feed the body. Yeah.
Right. And so, I have 7 pieces of that biostack so that we have this foundation. And you're exactly right, especially as we get older, the priorities shift, what our focuses shift. At the same time, so much of what I've been teaching and talking about recently is really that this is the foundation of human health. And that is the case at every and any age.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to our kids, that is the example to set. Those foundations versus the
fancy,
good, bad, on, off, not eating right now because I'm fasting, right? All of those pieces that end up part of the conversation when our kids learn it. Because look at us, friends, right? When that's what we learn, we snowball to a place that isn't quite where we intended.
True. Very true. So the stacking with foundation, what do you talk about when you're speaking of a foundation?
Yes. So the 7 pieces of the biostack. So certainly mindset, nutrition, so our fuel, hydration, which is about more than just water, movement, sleep, stress, and community and connection.
Beautiful. Really important things. What do you mean when it's the water? It's not just about water.
So hydration is really about minerals. And I know you're a big fan of minerals and you talk about them all the time. So we don't have to go into detail. The point being, we can be drinking gallons and gallons of water and the body can still be dehydrated. So it's really about just understanding an element of, in my mind, it comes back to nutrition because so many of those minerals we're getting, from our nutrition. And with that said, minerals are electrolytes That doesn't necessarily mean that electrolyte powders are the answer either.
That's right. We're
So,
not talking Gatorade here.
right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's funny. Today I had follow-up calls with clients. I literally probably said minerals to them 5 times each. Like, it's just really important. Like, it's so important. And whether it's however they look at it, however they look at things, but it is essential. Like brain health, bone health, breast health, heart health. Even talking about heart health with women, I'm like, well, have them do some magnesium serum tests with you, or just do a hair mineral analysis. Like, you really need to understand what you're sucking out of your body with all that stress that you have. So again, when you
Yes.
go back to that foundation and you're really focusing on the really basic, they're not basic, but they are really basic things that we never think of, it really does help simplify things.
Well, and that's the piece. If you're feeling like so much of your mental capacity is taken up by what should I be eating? What should I be drinking? Right? All those shoulds, or I didn't and I need to, all of those rules and all the things. And we're thinking about, well, what did I eat and what should I be eating next and what all of that stuff, right? The food noise as it's come to be
Yeah.
known. But if a lot of our mental capacity is taken up by this stuff, very technical term,
Stuff, yes.
this stuff, our work isn't done yet. And it's a sign that we want to maybe have more of a conversation because, as I often say, nobody wins for making this the hardest. The objective is really, how do we make this the easiest and the simplest? How do we make the healthful choice the simplest one to make?
Right.
The
Right.
one where it actually takes more effort not to do it than to do it. And that's where it really goes beyond a food list and it goes beyond, a supplement or some of these kinds of things. It's really about looking at different pieces of our day and how do we build this life and lifestyle so that it fits our life versus completely rearranging our life to fit whatever rules
Yeah.
we're being told at the
It's
moment we want to be following.
it's so true. It reminds me of, oh, sorry. My dog is with me, but he is being a bother. The listening to people and listing off their supplements that they're taking, or that when I'm doing a consult with them, they are expecting this giant list of supplements to take. And it's never that way at first. Learn to breathe, learn to, drink some water, learn to chew your food, learn to be patient and kind and understand the stressors of life and how you respond to these things. And a lot of the time they're kind of set back. I'm like, no, no, no. It's all about slow and steady. You need to understand you and love yourself again, and then move into the big things. And that is about the food and understanding those things and quality sleep, right? And quality water and or mineral hydration from food and from salt or whatever you choose. But it don't want to come off by saying it can be easy, because that is the hardest thing to do, actually taking care of yourself first, I find,
Well, I
for
think,
women.
it's easy to know what. It's not so easy to figure out. And that's where coaching comes in. That's where, you can have that laundry list of things to do in a day. It doesn't necessarily translate into a different day.
No, no.
So, and what I see most of the time is that we're building the plan for, like, when people come to me, they have this plan for the day and it's designed around some textbook perfect day that doesn't exist in real life. So rather, we want to create the plan for our most hectic, chaotic, stressful day. And then the days that aren't like that, where we maybe have a little bit of capacity, we can add to it and it becomes a bonus rather than the baseline.
Very good
It is
point.
a giant shift to get there. I know. And so that's why, having a buddy, somebody who can be that reality check for you, to focus on everything you are doing versus everything you're not doing,
Right.
becomes critical.
I always call it a little cheerleader on the side.
Yes.
So it's just it is accountability. It is that you're making progress. It is that you're okay. It is having that sounding board. And I think that's where people like us kind of come into play to help them answer the questions and help them guide themselves through the process, right? we overthink things and we expect bigger wins, I suppose, but they always miss the nice little ones, the better sleep, less joint pain, little things, right? A better bowel
Hmm.
movement. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. Where can people find you, Jenn?
Yes. Well, all social media, I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JennTrepeck. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Pick your platform, send a message because the highlight of my day is hearing from you. A little pro tip there on my website, on the contact page, you can book a 15-minute curiosity chat. So let's get to know each
Excellent.
other. I want to hear about you. So that's available to you. And then wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Salad with a Side of Fries. And my book is Uncomplicating Wellness. If you're a reader rather than a listener,
Yeah.
Uncomplicating Wellness. So wherever books are sold online. And I know, Dana, we gave you links for everything. So you'll have
Absolutely.
it.
Everything will be in the show notes. That's for sure. And I love it. And where did the title of your podcast come from? Like just a whimsical, how whimsical can we be about this?
Hardly. It is very literal, my default order.
Salad with a side of fries. I love it.
Yep.
Love it. Love
Yes.
it. I think that's fabulous. I want to end with, what is a word of wisdom that you find yourself holding true to, or strength, or
The one that keeps coming up lately is
very nice.
flexibility. Yes.
Flexibility for all the different situations you run into in life, flexibility in the different situations. You're out on the boat. Do I bring sunscreen? Do I bring an umbrella? And, is it going to rain? Who cares? You're on a boat. I love it.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Jenn, for being part of this podcast. And thank you so much for sharing your insight and wisdom in helping women navigate health through perimenopause, menopause, any age of life, to be honest. And I think it's just magnificent. I love your sense of humor and your whole joy and laugh, and Alexa as well. She's always delightful.
Yes. Well, Dana, thank you for having me. Such a pleasure.
Thank you again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Please reach out to Jenn if you've got questions. Listen to her podcast. It would be a delight to listen to. Find her book on Amazon and connect. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.